Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to do the first installment in my reptile care series. I hope to make this an ongoing series where I take topics from the comment section and from my Facebook page and pretty much any other topic that I'd like to talk about and bring it to you guys and then have nice big discussions in the comments. Hopefully some very constructive comments, discussions where we can even, discuss different care methods, some that I don't do, alternatives to what I would do in my own collection, and we'll just, try and make this the best thing we can possibly do. And I mean, if you all go and like my Facebook page and leave me some topics and comments there, then we can even do some, work together and get these videos going really well. So in this first installment, I wanted to just talk about information actually. So this is going to be an informational video about information. But to be really serious about that, I research constantly, and I think everybody should do that. You should always be trying to learn more, because if you get complacent with how you keep your animals, that's probably the day that you're going to start having substandard care. I'm not judging everybody, and I'm not saying that if you're not reading about your reptiles, you're not caring for them well. That's not for me to say, and you could be very well informed and always keep on caring for your animals very well. But if you want to give them the best care possible, you should always be striving to do better than you are before. And to assume that everything you do today is perfect is, in my personal opinion, a mistake, because you never know when a better method could come out. For one instance, when it comes to researching new reptiles, I recently got a Uromastyx. If you haven't seen that, you can check in the description, there should be a link. With my new Uromastyx came a whole bunch of new stuff. And when I say whole bunch of new stuff, a lot. I got a big huge terrarium that my bearded dragons are in now. I got a whole bunch of supplies, dishes, and other terrarium furnishings. But I also got a big box of old Reptiles magazines, which I thought was pretty funny because I actually just got my first subscription to Reptiles, and I've been waiting for my first magazine to come in the mail for the past month. But so I started flipping through the stack of books looking for ones that had Uromastyx on the cover. And I grabbed every single one of them that obviously had special care sections about Uromastyx, big articles written up about them. And I started reading them. I went through the two first ones, and I started to realize, hey, this stuff sounds lacking. It wasn't bad information, but it was just lacking. And then I flipped to the front of the book, and sure enough, 1995. Old information is always good, but we have to use it differently. When you come across an article that was written 15, 20 years ago, that information is going to be completely different from what we know today, because our scientific understanding of the reptile world is growing all the time. And you gotta cross-reference your sources. You can't just read one thing on one website and assume that's how you're going to care for your reptiles. It's not going to work. You have to go from one source, then another, and another, and another, and me personally, I'm going to keep on finding more. When I see new articles, I always read how to care for my animals. Even though, even leopard geckos that I know very well how I'm going to take care of them, but I always keep reading just to refresh my memory. And when you start reading old articles, you gotta cross-reference them with some new information, because the newer stuff, people have a lot of good information. Like, we didn't know about lighting the way we do today 20 years ago. And you know what? Chances are we're gonna know a lot more another 10 years from now. I personally have only been keeping for a couple years, but I read all the time, and I noticed that there's definitely a difference when it comes to old articles versus new articles. So you always got to be careful about where you're finding your info. So, all that being said, one of the ways that I always make sure that I'm using good information is when I'm doing my research, if I read something that sounds really good, but nobody else is saying it, you got to be careful about how you read that information, because, you know, sometimes some people say something that doesn't, you know, it does sound good, but nobody else in the reptile trade is doing it, and there's probably a reason for it. So when you don't know, it's always best to err on the side of caution and use the methods that are being used widely across the reptile trade. So, my point in this whole video, if you guys haven't gotten it yet, is that we always need to be critical of the information that we're finding. Because if you're not thinking critically, you might do something that, you know, just doesn't make sense. So now I'm going to leave you guys with a question. What's your favorite way to find information? When you source your information off the internet, do you look on forums? Do you only watch YouTube videos? Do you read articles that people have written up on the internet? You know, there's a lot of different ways to get your information. And then, do you get magazines? Do you read books? There's so many different ways to find your info. So I want to know what your favorite way is. Put it down in the comments. We can have a big conversation about what's the best place to find information about your reptiles. I like using multiple sources because when you're using multiple sources, you're always getting the best of multiple worlds, because, you know, there's keepers out there that have 1, maybe 2 reptiles, and then there's breeders that have huge collections, and then there's people in the middle who have pretty large collections, but they're just a private keeper breeding, you know, selling off a few babies that they get. You know, there's people all over the place. There's all kinds of different styles. What's your favorite way to get info? And I leave you with my new Uromastyx. We haven't named him yet. I've been trying to come up with a creative name. You guys got any interesting ways to call him? He's still pretty feisty little guy. See him whipping his tail there. Have a good one, guys.